because also there the difficulties were quite high. And after 3 days being on the summit, we knew, we understood immediately, we did not even speak about it, we changed high altitude travel, because this style was more elegant, was quicker, less danger, because we were only a few days on the mountain, like Julius Decker also said, if you go on up and down in one day, risk is much less, logically. And especially, and this was my key for the next decade, this style was much cheaper. As a South Tyrolean with a small background, economical background, I had no chance to finance a known 8,000 meter big expedition with 20 people, with 8 tons of material, because it was too expensive. But this expedition was only $10,000 altogether. The tickets, the equipment, the permit fee, a few porters up to the base camp. And so from this moment on, I could finance, pay for all my expeditions, and I became a totally free man. I became a freelancer on the high mountains. I was not anymore forced to go to some sponsors and ask some money. And before the Gasherbrum 1 expedition, I was able to do an expedition on an 8,000 meter peak as a guest every 2-3 years. Now I could do 2-3 8,000 meter expeditions a year because the cost was so low. It's a very simple economical quest. And I could also risk to fail. So I could near the limit. I could go nearer to the limit than before, because if I failed, it was not so bad. I lost maybe $10,000 altogether, but not more. A huge expedition failing is losing a lot of money. But my style allowed me to go quite near to the limit and learn to approach the limit without risking my life. But after this expedition on Gasherbrum 1, many people, especially climbers, said, okay, this is a small 8,000 meter peak. It's not really serious. You can do it in Alpine style. Just Hermann Pohl went on Nanga Parbat without oxygen. Also the French on Annapurna in 50, they went up without oxygen. But on the big 8,000 meter peaks, on K2, Kanchenjunga, Makalu, Lhotse, especially on Everest, this style is not possible. Because then the oxygen equipment with the heavy steel bottles was so heavy that no climber could carry his own oxygen, plus a tent, plus a sleeping bag, plus the food, plus a burner, up to 8,000 meter peak, 8,000 meters, to go afterwards with the oxygen to the summit. The oxygen equipment in the 70s for one man on Everest was 50 kilograms altogether. Going to the before last camp is 1 bottle, going with 2 bottles to the last camp, sleeping with the bottle in the last camp, going to the summit with 2 bottles again, back to the last camp, 1 night again with a bottle, and afterwards down to the base camp. 7 bottles, 7 kilos each bottle, 50 kilograms. Nobody can carry all this stuff to the summit. And so I planned, after Chris did the southwest face, and I could not anymore do it because he did it. So, I was planning to go on Everest without oxygen. The doctors and the physicians said this is not possible. We were not so secure that we could handle it. But we tried. Not going up, we go, and if we die, it's not bad. We are fear people like everybody else. I am very afraid if I am not on the level to do what I like to do. So we were quite quiet. We were together with an Austrian expedition, so we had to back up. We tried twice. On the end, we went from the South Col in a very cold day. We were not lucky with the weather. It was also quite stormy. From the South Col onwards, for the beginning, we did normal speed, like on the Gasherbrum or like on Nanga Parbat, 200 meters of high altitude in 1 hour. But getting higher and higher, it became slower and slower, and the problem was the velocity. On the last part from the south summit to the main summit, we were so slow doing one step, a rest, with the whole body lying on the ice axe, again a step, and still we had this strong wind, so that we were beginning to think about. We did not speak because we had not enough air to speak to each other, but each one was thinking maybe it's too risky what we are doing, and only because we talked a long time before what will happen up there, and knowing that the lack of oxygen will take down our velocity, and knowing that we were in time, we were more or less at midday in the high places. We could see on the watch we are still doing with the altimeter 50 meters of high altitude in 1 hour, and staying for 2 hours with our last willpower, we could go further. And I am sure that the main power to reach a high summit is not the muscle, it's the willpower. But the problem is that in high altitude, not only our muscles are not getting enough oxygen, and so the sugar is not burning in our blood, and there is no power. There is also a problem to heat our body. The most important, the most dangerous thing is that also our brain is not getting enough oxygen. So our willpower is getting less and less. The ability to do decisions are getting less and less. And many people said before starting that we would have brain damage going up Everest without oxygen. We were afraid, logically. Still, many people in Germany say that you can see that Messner got oxygen. Still a little bit out of his mind. But what I learned on Mount Everest is that in our mind is the last power to reach the far goals. For understanding our velocity, and maybe also for understanding that the problem was not the physical stuff, not the technical difficulties. The summit ridge of the Everest is an easy climb. Also the Hillary step is not difficult in reality. On the way down, Peter went down by his quicker than me, and I followed. We did not need a rope up on the Hillary step. We went down like going down on a small, easy climb in the Dolomites. But the dimensions were so big, especially on the way up, that we had the feeling, being so slow, that the summit is not nearing during the climbing up. The summit is going away, because we became slower with each step going higher. And this is the problem. The problem was a mental problem and not a physical problem. And maybe I have to tell you, Peter and myself, we trained before going to Everest doing uphill running. Today, many people are uphill running, but in this days nobody did it. And we did it for training our heart and our lungs. And we were able both, he in his Zillertal and down in South Tyrol, to run uphill, very steep uphilling in 35 minutes for 1,000 meters of high difference. In the upper part of Everest, we needed more than 1 hour for 50 meters. It means our velocity was divided by 40. And so in our view, the last ridge up to the summit was 40 times the real distance. And only because we knew this, not with our instinct, but with the intelligence, that it's not so long. We went and we could handle it. We said that a few minutes up there, no, a little bit longer than a few minutes. It was not the climax. We sit up there and we knew we have to go down. There's still a long way to go. On the summits, on the real high summits, there is not big joy on the summits. The place is small, oxygen is not existing, is existing a little bit, and the time is not there, so we went down, knowing that we take down from Everest one of the last taboos, and knowing that now Everest is a different mountain in the future, and especially also knowing that this is a clean way, also from the ecological side of of looking to it, a clean way to climb it. If you carry only your own stuff, you can live quite nothing on the mountain. And with this, I decided to do a second ascent on Everest, and I went to the government after this ascent. I didn't speak to anybody else, and I asked in Nepal the Minister of Tourism then if they would give me a permit for 79 or 80 for a solo ascent of the mountain. And the government, the people, the bureaucrats said, no chance. This is too dangerous, we cannot give you a permit, and in our rules there's written that solo ascents are not allowed. So after this, I understood it, I accepted it, and I decided afterwards to fly to Beijing. It was exactly in the year 79. It was the first year when the Chinese opened the border for scientists and for climbers to Tibet, and I asked the bureaucrats in Beijing, pure communist government then in 70, today it's different, but in 79 was a pure communist government, and I asked them I could get a permit for Everest on the north side. I was especially also interested in the history of Everest north side, about the British expeditions in the 20s, in the 30s, and I was very keen to get this permit. And the Chinese said, yes, no problem, you can get it. But you have to pay the normal fee, a fee for an expedition and not for a solo crazy man. And I asked them, how much is the fee? And they asked me $18,000 only for the fee. It was a lot of money for me, I didn't have so much money. No bank would give me a loan. And I decided after a while, I will do it. I got an editor in Germany, being quite successful as a writer, they give me some money. I sold my Porsche, I did not even know if I would need it afterwards, and so I started this quite crazy solo ascent. With 3 youngs I went to the base camp. For 4 weeks I had to wait because the weather was so bad that I could not really move. I went up afterwards to the North Col, but the slopes were full of new snow, monsoon snow. So I decided this is too dangerous. I went back again. I went to Shishapangma, climbed up high for acclimatizing. I went to the Choyu base camp and higher up to acclimatize. And after a while, I had the feeling, in the meanwhile, two months was gone. I had the feeling now the weather is getting better. I waited for a monsoon break. In these days, I went back to the north side. I packed my rucksack. It took 20 kilos more or less, and these 20 kilos I had everything for surviving for 10 days maximum. And I started, I remember very well, on the 18th of August in 80, at midnight more or less with a lamp. And going up to the North Col in the dark, I had to cross a huge crevasse, and I knew there's a crevasse. And the crevasse was covered partly on the smaller part with a snow bridge. And I was standing there and feeling, okay, there's the crevasse, but I don't see it. And it's only 1 meter, it's not difficult. And I tried to put the right foot on the other side of the crevasse. I had the left foot on the lower part of the crevasse. And exactly in the moment, it's a few seconds, when I had all my weight, my personal weight, and also the weight of the rucksack on one shoe, the snow went in. I tried to hold me, but the bridge was too small and I fell in the crevasse. I had a few falls before in my climbing activities, but not in a solo ascent. And when I was down in this hole, I was shivering, I was on the fear, my lamp was broken, I did see nothing. I had no idea where I'm standing, and I needed in this shock situation half an hour to repair my lamp. And I could see that I was very lucky because I fell in deep snow which was brought in from the sides in the last years in this hole. And I looked up and I could see more or less 8 meters above me, the hole where I fell in. I could see still the stars up there. And I understood immediately there's no chance to go up because the crevasse was like a big A, 1 meter in the upper part, where I was standing much more than 2 meters, and so I could not go out in a chimney system with crampons and ice axes. I had no ice screws, only one. I had no ladders. I had no chance to get up. And I decided in this moment, if I'm lucky, I need to be very lucky now. If I'm lucky, I go out and I go home. It's too dangerous. Alone, the whole thing is too dangerous. And I was very lucky. I followed the inside of the crevasse. It was not even difficult. I could go, I could sneak between something. You have to imagine like a corridor, but all in ice. Not simple, but not difficult. And after 80 meters inside, going climbing, I was up. It was the first morning light I could see on Kanchenjunga. And in this moment, I tried to go down, but something get up with me. I did not decide I go up. I was so focused for the summit, for the climb, for more or less 2 years, that this motivation, which became momentum in these 2 years, that this momentum was stronger than the decision down in this hole, in the bad situation, that I could go further. You have to imagine that I was dreaming about Everest from the end of the expedition with Peter Haberler in 78 up to August 80, so more than 2 years. In these 2 years, no day passed by without having a moment, the imagination of my solo ascent. I went back with this idea for more than 700 nights, and I woke up with this idea. And so all this thinking about Everest became motivation, and the motivation became a sum of motivation, became a momentum, and this was bringing me higher. It was not the most difficult climb I did. It's a quite easy climb on the north side. The upper part is not so easy because I had also to make the trail. I was alone, I could not divide the work. Going with a partner is especially easier because we can divide fear, we can divide work, cooking, building up the tent, especially doing the footsteps. I remember very well that on the end I went up on the knees and on the elbows because the snow was quite deep, going out of the northern couloir on the right side and afterwards again on the left on the summit ridge. And when I approached the summit ridge, it was quite late. In reality, it was too late, but I risked it and I went there. I was so tired that I forgot about everything. I was sitting in the snow, I was listening to my heartbeats and to my lungs walking. And I had this strange feeling that I am not alone. I was sitting up there with the clear feeling there's somebody beside me. I could maybe, if I would look, but he is there, so it's not necessary to look there. This photograph shot, this I made a year later on K2. There, a real partner was there, and also I did not look because I know that he's there. But on Everest, on the solo ascent, I had this clear feeling I am not alone, there's somebody else. And I think that in very crucial situations, we human beings, we have this ability to become a mirror of ourselves. So we see ourselves, we feel ourselves, because we need somebody else to keep us with half of the fear, with half of the loneliness up there, because also loneliness is dividable if you are with a partner. This is also for our private life. And after this ascent on Everest, again on the summit, no hype and no big joy. The real hype of joy came afterwards, being, maybe I had a picture, yes, being back to the base camp. Generally today, I am sure we are not going to climb the big mountains for reaching the summit. The summit is nothing special. The summit is only the point of return. You go up and afterwards you go down. Higher the summits are, less the emotions are allowed on the summit, because the emotions could also fix us there. So the emotions are kept in our soul. And when we are coming back to the civilization, to the first human beings, to the tent, to security, this is like to be reborn, at least for me. And to be reborn, it gives me also the feeling that the naked life is the most important thing, what is in my hand. The rest is not so important. And to be back in safety means also we understand, with, not only with our intelligence, especially with all our cells, that we saved our life. Alpinism, or traditional alpinism, is nothing else than surviving in places where surviving is very difficult. And it's an art. It's an art because the possibility to die are very high. It's very schizophrenic what we are doing. We go in places where we could die for not dying. Intelligent people would never go there where you could die. And before starting for Everest, I knew I could fall down, I could go in a storm, I could get under an avalanche, I could get a stone on my head, I could become crazy, totally crazy. It all happens. But knowing all this, I went and I invested all my time, all my enthusiasm, all my money I had to do it. It's quite crazy. But what we get from it, it's a new life. And coming out is like to be reborn. And there is and there is especially the feeling that there is a next challenge, and we can put again our knowledge, our enthusiasm, our time to see if we can fulfill this next plan. And after the Everest solo ascent, I had a few 8,000 meters peaks still to do, but it was then when I decided I will change again activity and I will look for other dimensions. Because I don't like to repeat myself. I knew higher I cannot go. More difficult, like Annapurna Northwest phase, for example, I am not able to do. And so I decided to go for this huge horizontal adventures. I did first vertical adventures, and now horizontal adventures. Do not understand it wrongly now what I say. I went for the huge deserts. And the first plan then was to cross the Gobi Desert. But in the Gobi Desert, I had a political problem because the Chinese didn't give me a permit. It was not possible, not even thinkable. And in the Mongolia, the Soviets were in, and they were ruling Mongolia, and they did not either speak about a permit. Only much later, I could cross the Gobi Desert. And since the Gobi Desert was not accessible, I planned to cross Antarctica, more or less on an idea of Ernest Shackleton. I think the expedition he did between 14 and 16 on the beginning of the last century is the biggest adventure human being has ever done. You all know the story. When he was not lucky, so he could not reach the length of Antarctica. He was stuck in the back in the Weddell Sea, and the ship Endurance broke, and they had to save themselves in very hazardous way. You can read it. I was there a few weeks ago again, studying especially on the Elephant Island for understanding better what Frank Wild did there, because maybe I'm writing a story about it. This would be a great story for us, the Shackleton story. And I think it's possible to do. And so in the modern times it was not anymore necessary to have a boat for reaching Antarctica. Charles Kershaw was able to fly us there. And so we could go and do Arvid Fuchs, a specialist on navigation. I was not a specialist on navigation. And GPS systems were not yet clearly working in Antarctica, so we need the classical sextant to do it. And we did it more or less in the same, not in the same style, because Shackleton was planning to do it with dog sledges, and he had a second expedition from the other side, from the New Zealand side. We had an new depot on the pole, also with an airplane, quite a costly thing. And we had both a heavy sledge, 180 kilos at the maximum, and we crossed this continent from the South American side to the pole. We reached the pole more or less at Christmas, now a little bit after Christmas, New Year of '89. A little bit late because we had only 6 weeks left for the second half to reach an Italian ship with scientists on the other side to have a way out. The people on the pole were quite strict. We could not really feel free because the Americans, they are occupying the pole. They don't like this wild people, this adventurous. Now it's okay, but then it was difficult. But the technicians were very, very nice, and they give us the chance to do a shower. Only one shower in 92 days. I don't say anything else. And so we went down the other side. It's the harder side because we had to do exactly the Vietnam Glacier. It's a little bit bigger than the Himalaya glaciers, 200 kilometers long, 50 kilometers wide. And after 92 days, from the first day to the McMurdo side, to the New Zealand side, we came out of this beautiful landscape. It's maybe the most beautiful landscape I ever have seen. Absolutely silence if the weather is good. The colors are changing between light green and blue on the ice, and especially timeless. I have today the feeling the Antarctica crossing was more than my whole life. 10 years, 1 month. I don't have a feeling because time was not more existing. And I always imagine the time after our time on Earth being a time, existence of infinite in time, infinite of space, and infinite of silence. Silence is the most important thing we can get today, since the world is full of noises all over where a lot of people are living. Coming home from Antarctica, just I had a new plan. My wife is always fearing it. If I'm successful, I come home with a new plan. If I'm failing, normally I'm thinking for a few months, and afterwards, normally I say, let's try again. But in this case, I came home with the idea to cross the Arctic Ocean from Siberia, the North Pole, and to Canada. It's a different challenge, totally different challenge. And since I learned to navigate in Antarctica with a sextant and also with a GPS system, because on the end we could use this modern help, I didn't need any more navigator with my expedition, and I was approaching my 50th birthday, so I was thinking maybe I need a doctor in the future coming with me because something is breaking. And I have a brother, he's a doctor, 10 years younger than me, and a very good runner, very good skier, also a mountaineer, but not a professional mountaineer. And I asked him, maybe you are going to many congresses all over the world. If you hear of a doctor being able to follow, being able and willing to go with me to this Arctic expedition, so please tell me the name, give me the number, and I will call him. And after 3 weeks, my brother came and said, yes, I found the doctor. I am coming with you. And so we decided to cross Greenland the long way from the southeast angle to the northwest angle, 2,200 kilometers without any support. And we were coping very well, and so we decided to approach the North Pole, the traverse of the Arctic Ocean. We had not a good winter. On the edge of the Arctic Ocean in Siberia, the ice was only 15 centimeters thick, very thin ice. And we were not very intelligent because we started with wind from the north, wind in the face, 52 below in Celsius. After a helicopter put us on the edge of the Siberian zone, and we went into the black ice, and we went quite well on the beginning. And we had a second bivouac in a small tent near a pressure ridge. Maybe you know what's a pressure ridge, where the ice is stuck. And we went to sleep and we had our food. And in this night, still 52 below zero, the whole ground around us broke. Very simply, we did not understand in the moment when it was happening. It was a noise like in a fabric where they work with metal. We could not either speak with each other. We understood nothing. It was so wild, and the ice was dancing around us. And we understood later on that the storm brought the thick ice, many ice blocks near the coast, and so the ice where we were sitting or sleeping in the tent was always pressured. So we understood if we are staying, okay, we die in 1 hour, 3 hours, but anyway we have to go out, and we went out and we tried to go back to the coast from one ice island to the next island. My brother fell once in the water, but he didn't drown. He was able to swim. I was not able to swim. I'm still not able to swim. But we were so in thick clothes we could not either go down totally. But it was very difficult for him to come out again. And we lost one of the sledges, and on the coast we had to wait for a few days. We could send a message that we would need the helicopter again. With one sledge it was not possible to go a second time. And we swore to ourselves, never more back ice. It's enough. On the way home, we met our logistic people in St. Petersburg. Very nice people, Viktor Serov, Viktor Broyaski. They were organizing that we could reach the Siberian coast. It was not so easy in 95. And we were on the ice like in a satellite on our own. Self-sufficient, and especially also on our own responsibility. This is the difference between tourism in the mountains and traditional climbing. A traditional climbing is carrying in his rucksack everything what he needs, and especially all the responsibility. The tourists on the mountains, also on Mount Everest, they are also carrying some equipment, not all of it, but no responsibility. They give the responsibility to others. And that's the big difference. And we are coping with ourselves, moving totally different if we have responsibility or we don't have responsibility. Our civilization did nothing else in the last 5,000 years than prepare safety for us. And it's okay, we need it. But we adventurers, we leave safety to feel how we behave if we are in a situation like human beings 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 years ago. So these two Russians in St. Petersburg, they said, okay, you did some mistakes. You did the big mistake to start against the wind. He knew in the meanwhile it was a mistake. And they say, we invite you on a trip near the North Pole. There is a landing strip for airplanes. There are some scientists. If you like, you can fly there. We are going there to do our work. And from there you can go a small trip, 150 kilometers only, to the pole. So you see also the middle of the Arctic Ocean. It's totally different. It's much more stable, and it's also cold. We were starting at the beginning of March. Now it was April. So in April the sun is always up. In March it's only twin light and dark, because the Arctic night is still partly alive. And we accepted this invitation. We had half of our equipment. We went to the pole, we standed on the pole, and we said, okay, we did some mistakes. We were also too slow in the middle. We had the calculation we can go in the middle 25 kilometers a day. In Antarctica we did 30 kilometers a day. More or less, not every day the same thing, but more or less. And we had to correct 2, 3, 6, and we were willing to go a second time next year. But in the meanwhile, I had my fall. I broke my heel at my home in my castle in Yuval, and so it was not anymore possible. And later on, I became too old, older and around, and so I did not do a second time. I have to tell you that I failed many, many times. When I finished with my Dolomite climbs, with my rock activity, I had still a small book with 50 ideas for new lines in the Dolomites. I failed altogether 13 times on the 8,000 meter peaks. And if I would not have failed sometimes, I would not be here. I had quite a good feeling up to this point and not further. I failed on the south face of Talagiri, on the south face of Makalu, on the south face of Lhotse twice. I am very proud that I failed so many times. And maybe it's right to say Messner is the adventurer who failed more often than everybody else. I would be very proud. I am not the most successful mountaineer in the last decades. No. I failed many times. And I learned through failures and not through successes. I learned how far I can go and how far I am able to handle the situation. But maybe this is the capacity I have above my instinct I got when I was a child. My instinct generally, not only in the mountains, but in wild places generally. I was able, when I was on my knees, when I failed, to get up again, and try a second, a fourth, a fifth time. Many people, after 3-4 failures, they quit with it, they let it go. I am able to try again and again and again. Also with the museum, many specialists, directors of museums in Roma, in Munich, in Zurich, they said you have no chance in a province like South Tyrol to build up a structure with 6 houses and tell about mountains. Nobody's interested about mountains and how you tell about it. But I was able to organize it. This is a self-sufficient museum. We don't get 1 penny of subventions. I got some houses. They are not, 2 houses are mine, 4 houses I got as a, how do you say, as a
donation? Yeah.
No, not that. They are not mine. One is of the local province, one is of a community, one is of a foundation. And now they offer me every week a house because they are not able to run them. But I'm a mountain specialist of mountains, so it's a mountain museum and nothing else. And the houses, I have one for 20 years, one for 30 years. My own houses, they are mine, so I decide what I do, how I like it. And I'm only a storyteller. In these houses, I tell stories. I tell many stories, also stories about Chris. I hope that I can tell stories about you, boys, in the next years. And also, Tom Holtman is in my museum. I have many relicts. For example, the climbers know the baby sack of Walter Bonatti, which he used in the Drüppel. And looking to it and knowing the whole story, it makes me cry to see it. And this is strong emotions, and with art, with pictures, with relicts, and with sentences, I am telling more or less many stories, so also non-climbers can understand or emotionally feel what is happening if human beings and mountains are meeting. Everybody's laughing because the Yeti is still, also in America, nobody's really seriously thinking about it.